Good evening, everyone. We definitely want to be vigilant of everybody's time. I appreciate you coming out and braving the weather, because it is pretty nasty out there. And of course, that definitely affected the turnout, but we're not going to let that slow us down or stop us. Too important of an issue for us not to have open discussion out here in the public. But before we get that part going, I'd like to thank Ms. Miller for allowing us to use this facility to hold this public meeting. She's a community partner, somebody who wants to partner with the county government, and I appreciate that. So I'm going to give you the floor and let you tell a little bit about where we are and what this building is.
Well, good evening. Again, my name is Tammy Miller, and I'm the Executive Director of Prevention Plus. Welcome to our home. We're absolutely thrilled that you all are willing to be here tonight, and thank you, Chairman Turner, for agreeing to let us host this public meeting. Prevention Plus has been in Forest Park for some 27 years, quietly serving young people. Young people who, for whatever reason, public school has just not been a good fit. Our young people come to us because, hey, they didn't like going to school, they had challenges at home, they may be young mothers, they may have problems just getting it in a larger environment. And so, as I said, for 27 years, we've been working to serve those young people. And for the last 2 or 3, we really decided we had to push our mission a little farther so that young people will not only graduate from high school or earn a GED, but also move towards college. And so now our work is really grounded in how do we help young people ages 14 to 24 not only earn their high school diploma, but push towards post-secondary. And that for us means, hey, it might mean a 7-week certification program, a 1-year program at Atlanta Tech, 2-year associate degree, or 4 years with Atlanta Tech and Clayton State. So we really believe in young people having the opportunity to continue to train and develop academically. We want them to be good citizens, giving back to Clayton County, being responsible for themselves, their family, and their community, and we believe our work matters here in this county. So we thank you so much. We hope that as you hear from Chairman Turner, you voice your ideas or concerns or thoughts about SPLOST, that you also remember Prevention Plus and send other young people our way that you may know of. Our county has to support those young people that, for whatever reason, public school isn't working. So thank you so much, and we appreciate it.
All right, give her a round. All right, before I say anything further, I'd like to recognize Mayor of Forest Park, David Lockhart. Thank you for being here. He's going to have to leave in a little bit because he does have, yes, sir. I thought you said.
Thank you.
Okay. He does have another engagement, and he thought it was important enough for him to be here, so I appreciate you stopping by, sir. As I said earlier, it's very important that we hold these public meetings to be transparent about what we, the county, have been doing with your tax dollars in the past, and with a SPLOST coming up, a SPLOST vote coming up next year. We want to make sure that you understand what it is, what we're collecting for, and how, hopefully, it's going to be used. It's not a done deal. It's up to the citizens. It's up to each and every one of you to vote on it. You have to pass it. What the Board of Commissioners do is agree on the project list. And again, we comprise that project list by what the citizens tell us. Again, it's about listening to you. Hearing what you would like to see in Clayton County. What you would like, your little tax penny, which goes a long way, and we definitely don't take that for granted, to help us augment our budgets. Because if we didn't have the continuation of the penny that we are collecting now, then we would have to come out of our budget and start building what you want. Paying for resurfacing of roadways. Making sure that if there's a community center that needs to be built, then we would have to build that out of our budget. Budgets with a declining digest, it's real hard to find the funding for these projects. What the SPLOST does is allows the opportunity to use that penny that the citizens willingly give us for the betterment of Clayton County, to move Clayton County forward. Think about building Clayton County up. Now's the time, since we have, and one of the greatest benefits to my job is being able to work with mayors like Mayor Lockhart and the other 6 mayors in this county. Great bunch of people to work with. We might not always agree on everything, but we are at least sitting down talking about it. and then coming to a decision or a compromise and moving forward. Because we recognize the fact that we work for you and that your voice is going to be heard and needs to be heard. Forums like this give you that opportunity. So don't be shy. Speak up if there's something you would like to see. And again, whatever we put on I'm assuming, DETRICK, that this is to put up the ideas, does not mean necessarily that it will be built, because there's 266,000 people in Clayton County. And then we have government elected officials who also have some input. And then we have a board, a committee, SPLOST committee, and Mr. Davis is the chairperson of that committee. They sit around and they try to vet out some of these projects. And they do that because some people throw up a project like a wish list and it's really not feasible to do. So with that being said, we have to vet the process, but we can't lose focus of the possibility that what is recommended might not be what's built. Again, we have a decline in digest. We have to be feasible. We have to be prudent with the money that we spend. If, for instance, Target's leaving us, that's sales tax that we're going to miss out on. That means the money is going to be low. The collections aren't going to be as great as we had originally anticipated. So when you have a limited amount of money, we have to look at the projects that's going to benefit Clayton County the most and the most amount of people. Now, does that mean it's something like infrastructure, roadways? Nobody wants to drive on a bumpy road. But you got to be realistic about what we want to throw up as an idea of what you might want to see in Clayton County. I have a great staff. Appreciate each and every one of you, what y'all have been doing. The selection, the SPLOST committee is doing a great job, and they have a meeting next week. And they're going to vet further some more of the ideas that are being tossed around. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the Board of Commissioners to decide on what projects move forward. But it can't move forward until there's a vote. And I'm not here to tell you one way or the other how to vote. You vote your conscience, vote what's in your best interest. But we need to be here to give you the information so you can make an informed decision. You need to know that if you grant us that opportunity to continue to collect that penny, that we're going to be good stewards of your money and do what's in your best interest. So again, we're not here trying to tell y'all how to vote. We're here to present the facts to you. And I believe Mr. Stanford or Mr. METARKO is going to come up here and explain a little bit about SPLOST and maybe even the process. So again, thank y'all for being here. Again, you could be somewhere else by a fireplace, nice and toasty, but you're here and we don't take it for granted, and we definitely want to be good stewards of your time. So again, thank you, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Brevity is sweet, so we will make sure that we provide you kind of the high-level perspective about SPLOST. We kind of thrown out the term SPLOST. The acronym is Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. Technically, it's a tax incentive. It's a tax. It's like a bond, where in essence you actually have this 1 cent sales tax that we already have allocated through the sales tax, and then in turn we provide that as an opportunity for you to now use that special purpose local option sales tax penny to now move for special projects. The special projects have run the gamut. How many of you are familiar with the 04 program, the 2004 SPLOST program? How about the 2009 SPLOST program? And now we're trying to bring forth another 2015 SPLOST initiative. And so, in essence, one of the things that the chairman has pushed forward for this respective SPLOST initiative is that he wanted to make sure there was transparency in the vision, and most importantly, they were working in conjunction with our elected officials in the cities. So, Mayor Lockhart being here certainly is representative of this joint collaboration between the county and the cities. And so what we want to try to accomplish tonight, and I'll let Mr. METARKO also talk specifically about some other opportunities that might be pushed forth, as well as bring Mr. Davis to the forefront as well, as he's the chair of the SPLOST Citizens Committee. But what we want to try to get accomplished tonight is give you an opportunity to give us some perspective of what projects you would like to see if ultimately you had your worthers about what direction we're heading with the SPLOST program. And so It runs a gamut. You already talked about road projects. We already talked about recreation and facilities. We talked about libraries. Mr. METARKO may get into the difference in what considered a level 1 project versus a level 2 project. But we want to make sure that we're capturing information through this entire process to ensure that the citizens have an opportunity to voice their concerns or voice their opinion about what direction they'd like to see the capital projects to go in. To be specific, we want to make sure that you understand this is an educational session tonight. As the chairman already alluded to, this is not an opportunity to solicit votes from you, but it's really to answer any questions you may have about the program and the direction we're heading in, whether it's about the 04 project or the 09 project, and where we're going for the 2015. So with that, I know I'm all over the place with some of those bullet points, but I want to give Mr. METARKO an opportunity to talk specifically about, what's the difference in this 15 project versus what we've done in the last two, the 04 and the 09 project.
Thanks, Deidre. Just so we get all our time frames in line, the current SPLOST program, what we refer to as the 2009 program, runs for 6 years. It's set to expire at the end of next year, 2014. So we've kind of coined the phrase 2015 SPLOST. This SPLOST, if it's approved by the voters, would carry over starting collections in January 1st of 2015. But that's the time frame we're talking about. We are our schedule's dictated by the Georgia Code about when we could have these, what they call special elections, where it's actually on the ballot, where the citizens get a vote, yay or nay for it. So some people might say, man, this is way ahead of schedule. We're not even talking about something for another year. If we had our drillers about it, it would be later in the year, but this is the only time we could do it to continue the collection if the citizens so give us that opportunity. So we are talking about projects that would be, the tax would be collected for the time frame of 2015, January 2015, potentially up and through 2020. It still has to be determined if we're going to propose a 5-year program or a 6-year program. Either of those are potentials. But I know that's getting into details and stuff. What we need to talk about with y'all and have an open discussion is what are the needs of the community. What do you want to see built? The one thing I would throw out there first is it has to be capital. By capital, it can't pay salaries for staff to do stuff. It can't displace the taxes we already collect to run the government. It has to be a capital purchase. It could be a fire truck. As DETRICK said, it could be a road project. Some of the examples from 2004 and 2009 programs are recreation centers. We have a couple libraries and senior center. The buildings that you see, those are definitely capital projects. Sidewalks, a potential for transit buses, not operating the buses, but buying the buses. There's a little difference there. But any of those are potentials. So, I mean, we're open to any ideas you have, any locations. The cities and the county are on board together. So there are no jurisdictional lines. We're open to any project. And we'll work on the semantics of whose project it is in the future. It's Clayton County altogether. So,
as another caveat, just to give you the real high-level timelines associated with where we are. So the chairman has asked, along with the cities, we have called these the listening sessions. So the listening sessions can certainly go all the way up through voting time, theoretically. But what we're looking at doing is that we're taking these listening sessions. There's projects that are being solicited and have been recommended by the respective department heads in the county, as well as the leadership in the cities. In turn, that list is then provided to the citizen advisor, to the citizen committee, and then in turn, what they're doing is taking that list and those multitude of projects, then in turn making recommendations to the Board of Commissioners to at some point in time make recommendations on what they would like to see on the ballot initiative. And then as Jeff alluded to earlier, what will eventually happen come May, I'm looking at a May 20th date, the voters will go out and vote on the actual SPLOST initiative or the ballot initiative that will be hitting the ballots in 2014. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The timeline. Jeff kind of talked specifically about what we're hoping to accomplish. And again, we're going to do more listening and talking tonight. But we want to use this as an opportunity to do twofold. One, for you to provide us some insight about what you would like to see. And then also, the chairman said he wanted to make it abundantly clear, answer any questions that you may have about what direction we're heading in, and even answer any questions you may have about the 04 program or the 09 program. So with that, we're all ears.
call Mr. Davis up to the front. He's the chairperson of the SPLOST committee, but while he's coming, I'd like to take this time to recognize Mayor Burke from the city of Morrow, sitting in the back. Thank you for being here, Mayor. Also, just so you're abundantly clear, the 2015 SPLOST is not another penny tax to be added. We want a continuation of what we're already collecting. So you're not going to be taxed extra. It's not a penny on top of whatever is going on now. It's just a continuation. So please don't get that confused. We're not trying to get any extra money out of you. We just want to make sure that we continue it so we can continue to work hard for you and build up the infrastructure in Clayton County. Mr. Davis.
How's everyone doing? First of all, we all appreciate coming out in this wet and cold weather. We know that you all have other things to do. First of all, is anyone not signed in? If you have not signed in, please sign the list in the back. As you know, at the commission meetings, if you go, they give us a couple minutes to talk, and we listen to them. Tonight is reversed. They're going to listen to us. We'll give them a couple minutes to talk. Is that fair enough? Okay, that's what we want to make sure. We've got plenty of time. We've got another hour and 45 minutes to do this. So, open up your minds, open up your hearts, ask whatever you'd like. I am chairing the 2015 SPLOST. What we are here to do, there's a group of 12 which represents all districts and all cities in the county. And what we're here to do is to review the lists of the departments and of the cities. And what we're going to do is we're going to review those lists and say, do they correspond to what we the citizens want? If they don't correspond, then we have the right to say, well, maybe let's not put this up, or let's put it down in priority. So that's what we want to do. We need to know what kind of county do you and I want to live in as citizens of this county. We're here to go forward. We're here to move up, not move down, not stay stagnant. Okay? So any questions? Let's get it on and let's go for it. When you ask your question, please state your name and what city or district you're from so that we can have that for the record and keep moving on. Okay. First.
I guess we get this thing started. Jeffrey Benoit, District 1 here in Clayton County. As the chairman was speaking about transportation in the SPLOST, and he said we can buy the buses for that particular service, which is a big issue here in the county. But recently we were also talking about the light rail, or something to that effect, the transit. Would this also be a part that we can use in that area there? I think they had a meeting there just last week where they was pitching that particular project. And so would this be a part of that, or would they support that in any way?
Light rail is similar to the transit dilemma we're in to a degree. Some of it is more simple, and some of it is a lot more complex. Transit in general, whether light rail, heavy rail like MARTA, or buses, we still have the issue about paying the operation cost. And that is not a capital item. I wish it was. If the state legislature wants to change the law, I'm sure we will be amenable to it. But right now, it will not pay for operating, no matter what type of service it is. Light rail somewhat is easier because you're dealing with a location, a linear path, I should say. But the more complex things you get into is the right-of-way of the railroad track. There has to be a negotiation with whoever the owner of the railroad track is. The things in the past where Georgia DOT is bogged down on that is having the money to commit to the project, and you're basically sole sourcing one purchase with the owner of the track, and they can call it whatever they want to have it. And so far, the price keeps on going up every time they talk to them. And until this this community is committed to a rail system, I don't think you're ever going to see a good number on the table that is attainable. The other thing about light rail is we all know Clayton County can't operate that in a bubble. It's going to take many jurisdictions along the line, whether you go up into Atlanta, to Macon, to Chattanooga, any of these other places that's been discussed about. So it's a bigger, broader system that you're talking about. We've got to have state buy-in on how we do this. Clayton County, I'm sure, would be a leader in the effort, but obviously we can't control things beyond our borders. There's been many things thrown out in the past about how to do this, some tax zones around the line, but honestly, until we get some push on vision from the state level, it's going to be very difficult to advance that light rail. But if there's an initiative out there, the county can come to the table and dedicate some of the SPLOST funding to help buy the line, to buy the rail cars. I mean, there's oodles of stuff from stations. Any of that stuff is capital, and this would be a great method to kickstart it. But at this point, the discussions of the state of the idea in the Georgia level, it would be a difficult matter to try to really seriously think about putting into this next SPLOST program. It's an opportunity, but yet it still might be a little bit too far in our reach.
And let me say this, when it comes to the, you have to weigh the difference. When you're talking about transportation or the transit system, I really would not want to allocate those funds for light rail when we're trying to bring back a bus system. So when you're talking about buying capital equipped buses and shelters and so forth, that's priority. And again, just like SPLOST, don't get it confused, it takes a board vote. I'm pro. I can tell you right now, I'm pro bringing transit back to the county. See the need. It's been articulated to me more times than once that Clayton County, and I definitely agree that for us to grow as a county, we need to have a form of transportation here. But at the same time, we got to be careful about not getting off the path in terms of light rail and a bus system. I think we need to concentrate on that, and I encourage all of you to get in touch with your commissioner. Let them know what your feelings are in terms of bringing back transit to Clayton County. And I'm not going to sit here and speak for them whether they're for or against it. But I would encourage you to touch bases with them and find out where they stand on it, and then let them know how you feel. Very important to do so. But as far as my mindset is, let's focus. If anything in this SPLOST, it would be something more geared toward a bus system as opposed to light rail.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm under the impression, do we already own the buses?
No, we got rid of them.
The old
Sold them.
C-Tran buses that I see up here on the side street of Interstate 75. What is this? What is that?
Those are Greta buses.
Those are Greta buses. So the county.
No, they sold them off, correct?
Yes, the county did not have a complete ownership. The way the federal grants work when the county started the system, either the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority or even MARTA at the time we were partnering with had a stake in them, and per federal guidelines, we couldn't retain 100% ownership. So it kind of reverted back to those organizations, and my understanding is they sold them off.
Okay, that answered my question. Another thing too, with all the different meetings that we go to, almost every time the subject comes up about transportation in Clayton County. Well, it's true, we do need transportation in Clayton County, but we've got to know what we're doing when we dive into this to provide transportation. I don't want to have it today and 18 months later it fails and disappoint the people. We really need to educate ourselves and study to see what it's going to take to get the transportation. I know the people want it. I want it too. I want Clayton County to grow. And I think that's what it's going to take to get Clayton County to grow, and quite frankly, to connect more with downtown Atlanta. We need transportation. But I don't know if it takes a feasibility study. I don't know. I'm just suggesting we cannot jump into this transportation thing unless we know what we're doing.
And thank you for that. And it's definitely a valid question. And I don't want to get off the driven path, but I think his point being valid needs to get a quick recap as to where we stand currently with trying to obtain a feasibility study.
Well, can we ask this then? Can the SPLOST, piggybacking on the mayor, can the SPLOST accommodate or fund a transportation initiative or some sort of study?
Well, we got that in the works. Go ahead.
Yes, it can, to answer that question. I think under the chairman's leadership right now, we are going forward with, right now, trying to hire a consultant to perform that study. And of course, the basis of that study would be the future direction of the county. All options are on the table right now. So let me add one more thing. When we talk about light rail and buses and such, there's many different types of service you can provide on buses. C-Tran was a local bus service. It provided local services for different stops along the way. If you're familiar with the Greta Express service, that's kind of almost the other extreme. You get picked up at one spot and you go a longer distance. It to a degree emulates a light rail system in where there's few pickups in between. That's one of the things we need to decide when we go through this feasibility study. Some of the issues with C-Tran for the patrons that rode it back then, you were on the route for a long period of time because there was a local bus service. But about 70% of the patrons wanted to go to the airport to connect to Morrow. And that was one of the issues with C-Tran, the fallacies. It wasn't set up to grow and change to accommodate the different needs. So I'm not going to be bent on what you call it. I think that once we get in and study the needs and the citizens come out and tell us what type of transit they want, then it's going to flush out about, is it a local bus service with so many stops? Is it from point A to point B, downtown to the airport? Whatever that is going to come out. At this point, the rail, putting it on a rail line is going to be very difficult. Keeping it on wheels on a highway, whether it's even on a dedicated lane, there's other parts of Atlanta that are starting to do that now. There's options like that.
I have a comment, if I may. And I came here to get educated, so bear with me. And I'm getting educated.
That's why we're here, Mayor, so I appreciate it.
Really, I am. I'm learning. I didn't know about the bus situation. My question is, with the bus, if we had buses return, is it possible that it can be a public-private relationship investment?
Yes.
Because of SPLOST.
And that's what the feasibility study is going to assess our needs in Clayton County.
Okay. But it
What's
could
the
be a
best
public.
type, absolutely, what's the best system for us?
Let me
Like
ask
you
you-
said, we can't put it together haphazardly. We need to do a smarter and better job than what was done last time.
Mr. Chairman, if we did that, and with the private investment, I want to know, with the public taxpayer funds mixing with the private funds, would it be an opportunity for a private investor to mix with the public and have a return on their investment? Is that possible to have that done?
I don't know of too many transit systems that are profitable.
I don't know of any.
To the point, absolutely.
I do know that the gentleman that just took over MORROW, which we've all met.
Chief Parker,
Yes. He came from San Antonio.
yes.
I think San Antonio, and has quite an impressive background with success. And again, I came here to be educated on this tonight, and I was just wondering if it could be a private, public funding, but I'd kind of like to see the investors make some money if they could, and why shouldn't they if they invest with the needs of the county? My question.
Yeah, and to your question, or to your point, yes, there's no options off the table. Hopefully, the feasibility study will point us in the best direction for Clayton County. We can't worry about what the city of Atlanta's doing, Chatham County, anywhere else. Clayton County is our main focus, and the direction we want to take is what's going to benefit our citizens.
Absolutely, I
So
agree.
that's where we are with that.
Now, okay, we'll get back to transportation. Does anyone have any other questions with that? We'll go somewhere. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Janera Fitzpatrick, I'm from Riverdale. Okay, now when the idea of building the recreation centers first came up, that was mentioned of a girls' boys club. Now, the recreation centers are excellent. I take advantage of the senior myself, and my grandson loves Virginia Great and the other centers and the classes that they offer. We have a great number of children who can't afford to go to these recreation centers. Their parents can't afford it. I think that the Boys Girls Club would be a great benefit to these children, because we have way too many children just walking the street.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll address that. I'll put on my Parks and Recreation hat. This is an excellent question. From my understanding, when they did the feasibility study or polled the community about the recreation centers, there was a Boys and Girls Club as well as a YMCA concept that was initially posed or put on the table. Here's the reality. Even a Boys and Girls Club, there are still some funds associated with sustainability of those programs. So even if they come to the table, the question oftentimes is, do they have the wherewithal or do they have the capital to now defray the cost for the users in that facility? We try to do a cost model that ultimately, and I concur with you, affordability is affordability, and what we think is affordable may not be necessarily the translation back to the household. But what we try to do is try to do a user fee that we would not continue to come back to the citizens time after time as it relates to capital needs for the facilities. So, point in case, when you pay that $1 or $2 fee associated with utilizing the facility on a day-to-day use, or you do the $15 membership fee, or whatever you feel like is best for you, we try to use that dollar, it goes back into the general fund, and in turn, that dollar or that money is used to defray any capital costs associated with that. One of the arguments citizens put on the table, well, we pay taxes. The taxes should be able to help defray some of those costs. At the same time, the board is tasked with taking that tax dollar that's coming in and then trying to take care of other capital needs throughout the whole county. And so hopefully that user fee will help defray some of that. The board, under the chairman's leadership, they are asking us to look at all models. So as we talk about building of new recreation centers or new facilities, we are looking at other viable partners that may need to come to the table to help defray some of that cost, not just for the facilities, but to your point, so the users can afford to use the facilities as well. Our biggest issue with our recreation centers are not so much about the cost, it's getting to the facilities. That's where the biggest disconnect is. What we hear more often than not is that they're in locations that it's not easily attainable for the kids to get to those facilities. So if it's not on a bus line or we don't have dedicated transportation for them, it's very difficult for them to be able to access the facilities. So we're also trying to figure out ways, if new facilities come on board, or when, because two facilities still have to be built under the 04 program. So when those facilities are built, are we building them in locations, or we putting them in locations that the citizens can access the facilities? And then secondly, we need to try to figure out from an affordability standpoint, are the price points too high that prohibits kids or even seniors or even adults from using the facilities? So we are addressing all of those things.
And just to add to that, the Boys and Girls Club is a building, just like anything else. Now, is the issue program-based? Now, is it a situation that can be resolved through adding more programs for our youth? Because you still have that problem. If we have a building, kids have to get there. Right now, we are challenged in that area. So the 4 recreation centers that we currently have, do we need to add more programs? Do we need to do something with the extension of time or something like that? Because I agree, our children need to have more programs and initiatives that will take them off the street and put them in an environment where they can be productive. Now, that's the area where we can look at and hopefully do something more about it. But then you're still talking about going to the general fund to fund personnel, overtime, stuff like that. But we feel you. Your concern is our concern. And matter of fact, I spoke to somebody, I think it was last week, about a Boys and Girls Club, about how we can collaborate, maybe even under a public-private type situation, to bring the Boys and Girls Club here. So again, we're not taking it lightly. It might not be the best funding mechanism here, but if we can get to the private industry people, those corporations, and get them to fund a building and a program, then that might be another way of getting that done. So, appreciate the question. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize State Representative Valencia Stovall.
Thank you. You're in my district, so I
All right.
Okay, next question. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question.
Present your
Good
name
evening.
first, even though we know you now. Just present your name.
Okay, Representative Valencia Stovall, you're in District 74, so welcome. The question I had when we're talking about recreation for our youth is also, is it on the table for some kind, when we talk about partnership with the school system? So since the facilities are already there, since one of the issues were a capital outlay and some other stuff, and when once school is closed, the buildings are empty. And they are in close proximity to most of the kids being able to walk
to the school. So I want to know, was there any, and I know that only certain stuff can be used with the SPLOST, but just putting it out there, since we're talking a lot in general also, is being able to see what kind of partnership we be able to form with the school system to be able to bring the Parks and Recreation in with their expertise with those programmatic type of things that the school might not be able to handle when it comes to recreational part.
Okay, good question. We'll confirm
Yes.
with the staff.
So Representative, that you're regarding programmatic needs, you're right. When I first came to the county, we used to partner with the school system. But as budget times came around and it became budget woes, and we had to make some determinations on how do we continue to fund certain programs and what became the core service. And so after school programs and summer camp programs are certainly a core services of Parks and Recreation Department. The question is, how do you now leverage those dollars through the school system and through our general fund through the county to make that work? Certainly, Ms. Jackson has been more than a great partner with the county as it relates to any parks and recreational opportunities that we try to look in the school system. So we are looking at trying to see how can we co-use facilities. The chairman and the board has been more than gracious in doing intergovernmental agreements with the school system when you're using space, but we're still trying to figure out how to expand those programs, because at the end of the day, the more satellite sites you have, it still reflects to personnel costs. And so how do you continue to maintain those facilities in light of the fact that the general fund will only carry you so far, and we need to have some more creative partners at the table to help defray some of the personnel costs.
And as you said, SPLOST can't fund it.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and along with that, it's also looking at our nonprofits that we have locally, because I know one of the challenges is actually having a facility sometimes to operate out of. So when you talk about the private-public partnership, it's kind of bringing everything to the table. Not saying nobody has done it. I'm just throwing it out that there might be another way or entity to be able to help with the personnel, defray the personnel costs. Because a lot of times with the nonprofits, some of them, not all of them, but it might be with trying to bring everybody together at the same table that opens up an opportunity for grants. Because you're forming that type of partnership that gives more leverage for our community.
I can tell you one of the differences that's in place now opposed to previously is that we now have more of a mission-driven model in place.
Okay.
So to using your example regarding the partnership, we're never lacking in individuals asking to use space. The challenge sometimes is whether or not the partnership is viable enough to really meet the mission of the county. And so a lot of times they want to use space, but they're not necessarily driving the mission that the county think is in the best interest. And so that's where the disconnect has come into play. So under the chairman's leadership, along with our COO, we've tried to be a little more strategic in our relationships, and that's given us a better opportunity to figure out what other things partners can bring to the table for the betterment of both parties, a win-win proposition, opposed to just wanting to use space and not necessarily benefit the county overall.
I just wanted to add, okay, you're mentioning personnel for the children. You can always ask for volunteers. I know I myself, I would volunteer gladly to.
There's certain liability attached to that
Oh,
too.
that is?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So if you volunteer, you go there and you get into a fight or something with a kid and you get hurt, the county's liable for that. So we like volunteers now. If you like to volunteer for something, I got a cost for work. Where Ms. Gossett at?
But to expand the chairman's point even further, just not from the liability, it also goes back to the requisite training that goes with those individuals. So we very well may have an individual that's willing to give their time and is a viable volunteer, but there's other things we try to vet them through, from first aid, through having an understanding or dealing with a child that's suspected to be under abuse, whatever it may be. There's a lot of other caveats that go into it, and then so when we tell them what comes with the volunteer time is more than just you showing up and providing your service for those 8 hours, but you need to do this requisite training on the front end, then that becomes a turnoff for some folk because they don't want to spend that much time in volunteering their time.
And not only that, but all volunteers aren't good volunteers.
Yeah, that's
You know,
what I'm-
when you do background checks and stuff like that, some people have different motives for wanting to work with children and other people. So.
And I do understand all of that. I've done a number of years with Georgia Department of Corrections. I volunteer for a number of different organizations, and I realize that, about the first aid training and like the social service aspect and what have you. But you have a resource of people. You have a lot of people who aren't working. They've got these backgrounds. They've got the time to volunteer. They've got the heart, the love for the children to come forth. A lot of times you have not because you ask not. You need for these kids, go to the community and ask.
Well, we have a volunteer resource on our website, so let's talk after the meeting, and I can provide you that information because we'll love to have a plethora of volunteers in our system. And we do have some, but a lot of times it's project specific, it's not program specific. And to your point, yeah, we probably can expand that. And if there's opportunities, you know, if you're willing to give your time and we can vet it through our risk management and our legal department that they don't have an issue with it, I'm sure the chairman say, hey, let's go forward. Anything we can do to still provide the requisite level of service and do it in a way that still get us the return on investment for the betterment of the kids, I'm sure no one would have an issue with that.
Another question right there.
Well, I was going to add to that, but Chairman already stated it in regards to the background check, because you don't want certain people around your kids because of their motives, and everybody that look good may not be good for the particular program. And having that accessibility, they have to have that extensive background checks, because people create fictitious documentation to prove that they have that credibility, but then again, is the accountability in addition to the credibility. But one thing that I wanted to say in regards to this program that you all are talking about, adding additional programs, do you all have numbers as to how many people use the facilities that are already in place? That will help in determining the transportation need to get the kids to and from, using a shuttle, using the school buses that are available after school or extended hours or something like that. Do you have any numbers?
Are you referring to the recreation center?
Yes,
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 ma'am. We have a system called the Vermont system. It's a rec track system that we implemented probably about 1.5 years ago now. And in essence, what we do, we track our usership from you know, the frequency, the time, what seems to be the peak programming times, as well as the volume of individuals that are going into the facilities. And the senior services have it as well. So both systems are co-joined together as it relates to
And that's data
usage.
that will be looked at during the feasibility study phase of looking about at the transit.
Okay, because that'll be vital to knowing who will have access to the facility during certain times of the day, during certain periods of the year, because it's season. It may be a seasonal thing where in the summertime people get more use out of it. During school time, people really aren't using it unless they're using it for the after-school programs, because kids have to have a place to go while parents are at work, or during the days when they have short days now, and days when kids are not even at school. We don't want it to be a daycare facility. We want it to be a facility where something is happening from the time it opens until the time it closes, where people can come anytime and choose the selected programs that are in place. Because just imagine a parent having to go somewhere where they can't take their children and say, hey, I would love to take my children for 2 hours over here to drop them off in a safe environment, not a daycare, but they'll still be productive and active, and it'll help the parent.
But you got to be smart with that too, because
Yeah.
programs come and go.
Exactly.
Let's say we set up a bus route to go to a rec center based on a program. Program ends, then nobody comes, so we got a
Yes.
bus route that goes that
Exactly.
way. We got to be smart about it as
Right.
well. I mean, you have a valid point, but we have to definitely do the feasibility study. We got to be patient, and we got to construct it the right way.
Okay.
So.
Now, we're talking a lot about programs. What do we want to spend this money on? We know the SPLOST money cannot go for programs. SPLOST money goes for capital improvements. What do we want to see in our county budget here?
My name is Keith
From one of our
Riverdale, District 2. And one of my questions is roadways. Are our roadways adequate for buses at all? Can our infrastructure actually handle buses? And the other part of that is, when we're moving along these potential bus routes, what is our safe passage? We have no sidewalks. How do we get our kids safely to those bus pickups?
The majority of the bigger roadways in the county are designed to handle the loads of a truck, a bus, ambulances. That's not to say we don't have some out there failing right now, but that's an ongoing issue. When we brought on C-Tran several years ago, we had some roads we had to basically go reconstruct in place because of the wear and tear from the buses. That's an ongoing thing. On these bigger roads, not subdivision streets, but on the bigger roads, the pavement is designed to withstand the load of a bus. For the issue about safety and how do you get to the bus stops, it's the same dilemma we faced when we did C-Tran. What comes first? Do you go put the bus out there and you get the benefit of the bus while you try to backfill the access to the bus stop? Or do you go provide all this access and then you bring the bus in there? So it's a give or take. Just that's the way it is. If there's locations that we don't have sidewalk on, definitely with the bus service in there, a school nearby, that's a priority for us. Not knowing exactly where the bus is going to go right now, it's going to be difficult to try to plan ahead of schedule. But it's a constant give or take. If you have ideas where we need sidewalk, definitely throw them on the table. I know one thing that I'm starting to say, because we've had a shift in dynamics at the county. Since the chairman's been on board, he's kind of given us direction to concentrate on the state routes. Previously, this county's leadership was not interested in making improvements to the state routes because that's the state DOT's responsibility. That's where their dimes need to go. Unfortunately, over the years, obviously, we don't have much sidewalk on the state highways. So the chairman's given my department direction of how do we get sidewalks on the state highways, even if we have to pay 100% of the cost on our dime, pennies, whatever you want to call it, get the sidewalks out there where the people are walking the most. So we're in the process of shifting gears. We are very interested in the priorities you want to see on this proposed program to 2015 to make sure we get the sidewalks out there. It's not going to be an easy feat. Some of the terrain out there along the state highways and in and out roads are not conducive for sidewalks. But throw ideas down, throw out locations. Tell me Parabola at this location, State Route 85 at this location. This is why we're here to hear about it. And over time, we will satisfy the needs, whether it's school buses, transit buses, or just the pedestrian walking down the street.
What about bike paths? Can those still be funded exactly like the sidewalks?
Yes, bike path is a little different. A traditional bike path is actually a part of the roadway. It's just a widened section of the road. We do have a trail initiative, which is more closely resembles a sidewalk, which is an asphalt path off the road. We do have trails right now in the works through some master planning through the Parks and Rec side. The widening of the road to put a 4-foot path, we don't have much on the books. When we did our transportation master plan about 4 or 5 years ago, the citizens, that was not one of the needs that they identified. They identified a lot of sidewalk and a lot of transit and some road windings, but the bike paths, I mean, that was way down the totem pole of their priorities. There are a couple projects coming within the county, mainly through Georgia DOT's effort, to put bike paths on some of the roads they will be widening over the next several years. But again, throw the idea on the table. If you feel like there's a high bike need in a certain area, by all means, we will look at it, and if it's a viable project, we will vet it, and if it rises to the top, by all means, we'll go forward with it.
Sharon Daniel from MORROW. Can the SPLOST money be used for technology?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So we can upgrade the technology that's in our county at the main offices that's located in Jonesboro and other areas?
Have you been looking at our cheat sheets around here?
No, it just that was nice to visit one day, and I was like, oh no.
Again, the SPLOST is a capital program. Technology, I think that's no secret. You let the cat out of the bag. This county is hurting on technology. It is constantly changing, trying to keep up to speed. We're always behind. We have internally identified a ton of technology upgrades we need. Whether it's our computer hardware, it's an overall software program. I know some of our financial systems in the counties are 30 plus years old. So we are looking at that. Whether it makes the final list, it depends on what the citizens desire. But there was a lot of ways this county could be more efficient, provide better service if we had the technology up front. Now, there are some aspects of that we won't be able to fund because it's more of a staffing operational needs, but the majority of it is a capital need. Great question. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor?
I want to spin off on what you just said and what you just said. I want to refer to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, Research Triangle Park, and then California to Silicon Valley. Why can't Clayton County be known for the next Research Triangle Park or Silicon Valley and have centers for technology and learning and for research and development in these areas, so the medical area? I would like to see a major medical center here. Let's look at Danny Thomas in Memphis, Tennessee. Danny Thomas didn't go to Memphis. Memphis came to him many, many years ago. We can have these things, I think, but my question really is the SPLOST funding. Can the SPLOST funds participate in activities like that?
I think there's opportunities. We would have to vet the specifics out. I know some of the things our Economic Development Office is looking for is ways to bring in more businesses to the county. What do we need to do to entice the businesses? Some of them are programs which unfortunately can't be offered through the SPLOST program, but they are actively seeking underdeveloped areas, and is the infrastructure there for what the area is planned for? Is there something we can do, a public improvement, a road, possibly transit? What can we do that the businesses are asking for? What are they seeking for? What can we provide out there so these businesses come? I don't think anyone in the room wants their taxes to go up. Bring in additional businesses, get the business community to contribute their dollars to our tax base. That's the way we can improve things around here. But they are vetting a lot of ideas on how to improve opportunities to bring in more business to the county.
You know, with the corridor that we've got, the I-75 corridor, Florida, Georgia, and all the points north, and the busiest airport in the world with the location that we've got. And everybody knows in real estate the three things you learn: location, location, and location. Clayton County's got it. I mean, I'm very passionate about this, and I'm also passionate about the fact that Clayton County, we've been stepchildren for so long, and I don't want to be a stepchild. You know, Henry County, where I happen to have a business in, we're growing by leaps and bounds. I like the fact that my business is doing good, but I want the county that I live in to do better. Again, the busiest airport in the world. We're 20 minutes from the biggest city in the South. We've got the I-75 corridor. If you create a committee, you can bet I'll volunteer to be on it with you. I'm here to learn tonight, and I'm hoping, and by the way, I wanted to point out, I think the chairman pointed out earlier, we're not asking for more money. We just want to keep what we got to continue the services we have. Is that correct, Chairman?
Absolutely.
So, again, thank you for bearing with me.
Okay. Let me say, I know from Silicon Valley, they had UC Davis, they had Stanford, they had UC Berkeley, which helped them implement that. They also had another company there which produced all those gentlemen that created Macintosh and Apple in that neighborhood. Up in Research Triangle, they had a couple of other smaller companies, but they also had Duke in North Carolina. We have Clayton State, and what I actually want to ask Mayor Burke is, what do you think, or can you dream up any kind of capital improvement program or project that can begin to turn this into what you're calling a technology center?
I'm sure if I had enough time, I could dream up anything. I heard rumor that Apple is coming back to the United States with their technology. I heard that. I hope that it's true. I would like to think that a lot more major corporations similar to that would be returned to the United States. I do know that for a fact that major call centers are returning back to the United States. I'm involved with one, obviously, right now. But I don't know, but I just cannot believe. I've always felt like if you knock on the door, somebody will open it. But you got to keep knocking till somebody does. And I did refer to Research Triangle Park, and I did refer to Silicon Valley. I just believe that there's so much technology out there. You could read the New York Times and go down the list, and start knocking on some doors and inviting people to see what Clayton County's got. And again, I've got to go back to location. We've got it.
And you talk more of an economic development piece.
Yes.
And, you know, we've been talking about that, been trying to work on that, and our people have been working together.
And very
But that's something
diligently, I
that,
might
yes,
add.
and we did have to, but I think in terms of what Mr. Davis asked about funding for a project like that, I think it has to come from the private sector.
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, if it's possible for public-private funds, and again, I have no problem with the private funds making a profit, as long as they stimulate the economy. Yes, we're talking about the economy in Clayton County. I have no problem with that. Private, public funds, absolutely. But I would like to see these things come, and if the SPLOST dollars could help to massage their interests, so be it.
Figure out a way how to do that.
I will. You
We'll
can
put
count on me.
you on the list.
Okay, put me on the list. I'm on a lot of lists.